wanted to thank everybody for coming to the meeting tonight. This is not an official RECF meeting. We're Team 9364, have other coaches next to me, Rachel Melton. Saya Miller is not a coach, but she's a head referee, and Miss Tina Finley. We are a very seasoned program. We've traveled all over the country multiple times with robots, and we just wanted to share some of our experiences. We've gotten a lot of questions from other teams on sort of the best ways to do the travel, whether it be in the airport or just getting around from place to place. So wanted to also introduce Kevin. I'm having a hard time pronouncing your last name. Kevin, sorry. From RoboSource. He is with us, and he has prepared a presentation to highlight some of the products that he has to assist with traveling with robots and some of the other gear that will be very beneficial to you. So without further ado, we'll kick off with Kevin and his presentation, and then once he's done, we can go back to us talking, and we can give some other pointers too.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. While Kevin's talking, if everybody else will kind of, stay on mute. If you have questions that you're afraid you might forget, if you'll go ahead and stick them in the chat of the Zoom. Ryan's going to kind of keep an eye on that for us. If there's something that he thinks we need to kind of stop in the middle, he'll let us know. And if not, then we'll make sure all those questions get answered at the end.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Share screen. Okay. Sorry, just I got Zoom laid out here. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chris and everyone, for having me over. Like I mentioned, my name is Kevin. I run RoboSource.net. I also did VEX myself for a couple of years. Ran 2 community teams based out of Canada, in case the Canadian flags in the photo weren't the giveaway. And I'll be talking a little bit about some tips and information regarding robot packing and transportation. And of course, I will also stick around afterwards, answer any questions, and I'm sure we can also distribute these slides afterwards if anyone wants to review them. So there's 2 points I'll be touching on. First of all, just general considerations about robot cases and packing options, and then some tips about specifically how to pack your robot to get it there safely. We're touching on batteries and transporting those as well. In general, the slides here I have are mainly for VRC with the VEX V5 system, but the general idea really applies to VEX IQ as well. You might not need the specific case when you have a smaller, lighter robot, but some of the tips when it comes to packing definitely do apply to VEX IQ as well. So the first thing to take a look at when deciding how to transport your robot, there's a couple considerations. First of all, the size limit. So the vast majority of airlines have a 62-inch length plus width plus height size limit. And above that, they will charge some oversized fee. It varies per airline, so just make sure you check with your airline. If you're checking on a flight or shipping it, you definitely want some sort of a hard box, whatever that may be. It'll be stacked with other luggage or packages, might be handled roughly. So you do want something to give it decent protection. And getting some of those wheels is pretty helpful, both in terms of moving the case itself, but at competition too, at Worlds, there's a chance your matches are going to be pretty far away from your pits. And you can also use a case or a box as a portable, laptop stand or robot stand when you're at the practice field or in your pits, just to put a couple things down on. So it's handy to have as well. So taking a look at robot case options, there's basically 3 typical, commercially available options that you'll see most teams having one of these 3 if they do. So the first one is the robot case that we sell at RoboSource. That one does fit in the airline size limit. There's the Pelican 0350 case, it's a couple inches bigger than size limit. So it really depends on, the employee, if they charge the oversized fee or not, but it may happen. And then there's the Robox bag. It's kind of neat. It's got a lot of organizers and pouches and things like that. We generally would not recommend it if you're putting on a flight. It's really better for more local competitions if you're traveling with your car, just because it doesn't offer as much protection as a hard case. And then, of course, there's also DIY option that some teams will do. So you can build a plywood crate. There's some tool chests that are pretty big, cardboard boxes. With those, just do be really mindful of that 62-inch limit. It might be a little tricky because with the size of the VEX robots, there's not too much space left. So just double check that. A quick side note about the RoboSource cases specifically. So we've seen way more demand than we would have ever expected for the cases, which is pretty awesome, seeing everyone getting back to, traveling to competitions. But what that means is that we're out of the completely assembled case that we usually have. So we have unassembled case kits now. They're not difficult to assemble. As you can see in the photos, everything's kind of slots together. It's pre-labeled. All you need is a drill and a cheap little hand riveter. But do set aside some time if you have one of these kits. Do it a couple of days in advance. Just don't leave it to the last minute, because it does take maybe an hour to hour and a half to assemble the case. And if you're looking to get one of these cases from us, please do try to order it as soon as possible, today or tomorrow, if it is possible. The reason I say that, not because I'm here to try to sell you something, but just because while we do have stock, it might take a day or two to get things shipped out, depending on volumes. There's shipping time, assembly time. So World is coming up pretty quickly. So keep that in mind. A note about cases and putting wheels or casters on them. I would recommend having some sort of casters that you can remove. So in this photo here, the way the ones we have work is you attach this plate to the case, and then the wheel clips in and out of it. The reason I would suggest removable casters is they're less likely to get damaged, but also if you're checking on a flight, they're not going to leave it sitting on its wheels because they don't want it to roll around on the conveyor belts and in the aircraft. So they're probably going to tip it on its side, which you definitely don't want. So take the wheels off if you can. We are actually completely out of the removable casters right now. So personally, what I would recommend, if this is something you're looking for, going with some sort of a hand card or a folding card, a dolly, something like that, and then considering adding the removable casters next year, because unfortunately, like I said, we are completely out of those, and we've depleted everyone we can find in the country, basically. And these photos I have here at the bottom, these are just from Harbor Freight, but really any hardware store, you can get this sort of a folding card or something similar. And then one other thing, this is a specific product that we have at RoboSource. It's a little sort of briefcase organizer that you can use to put batteries, chargers, controllers. There's a tool organizer. You can put scouting sheets and things like that in there. It's not necessary if you're finding a way to travel with your batteries and whatnot in your carry-on. You can just put them in a backpack or whatever. But it is a convenient thing that some teams will like to have. You can use it to organize your pits and just keep everything a little more tidy. So that is also an option that we do have available for the electronics. Okay, so now taking a look at just general packing considerations and tips for how to pack a robot. So I'll touch briefly on batteries. And then when it comes to packing your robot, there's a couple points you want to keep in mind. So really what you want to protect against are, first of all, vibrations and shaking. Secondly, your case being dropped. And lastly, getting tipped on its side or upside down. So obviously, thinking of these sort of things happening to your robot in its case will probably make most coaches and students cringe, but it's important to think about that because there is a chance that your case with the robot inside will be subject to some rough handling. So you want to pack accordingly and be prepared for that. So taking a look at batteries. So the VEX V5 batteries are lithium iron phosphate. The VEX IQ batteries are 9H or lithium ion, depending on if they're the new or the old version. All lithium batteries, regardless of the exact type, are prohibited from checked baggage. The nickel metal hydrate batteries are technically allowed in checked baggage, but I would recommend removing them as well, just to avoid any confusion. If the TSA agents are not exactly sure about the type of battery, I would suggest just take all of your batteries out of your robot out of your check baggage and put those in your carry-on. In the carry-on, there's no restrictions because these are just small batteries. And then if you are shipping your robot by, let's say, UPS or FedEx, you can ship batteries, but it can get complicated. Again, I would recommend just take them out, take them in your carry-on, and there's no restrictions there. So that should be the easiest option. And then when it comes to packing your robot, so the first thing, a couple prep things I would suggest doing before you put the robot in its case, start by taking a whole bunch of photos of it, just in case something does get bent or damaged or missing. Those photos can really help getting that fixed up quickly to the way it was beforehand. And then another really big one is to make sure the robot is not sitting on its wheels. So either just remove the wheels, or in this top photo here, we've just screwed some little pieces of wood underneath the frame to keep the wheels up on the ground, up off the ground. Just as if the weight of the robot is sitting on the wheels, it can, start to bend the shafts from vibrations and transport. You also want to take off any sort of rubber bands, fasten any moving parts. So let's say if you have a lift, you want to zip tie that. Really just make it pretty solid. Anything that's going to move inside the case is not something you want. So just fasten any moving parts. And if there's any sort of fragile or sensitive mechanism, something that is finely calibrated, or any mechanisms that might get damaged, I suggest just taking those off if you can and putting them back on once you arrive at Worlds. And then lastly, like I said, just remove any and all batteries and take those separately in your carry-on. So once you've got your robot all prepared, when it comes to packing it inside of the case, the main thing is you really just want to make sure it can't move around inside the case much. So some teams, they'll screw or strap the robot into the case. It's not really necessary, but it is something to keep in mind that you might consider doing. The more common option is really to just put padding material on top of the robot. It doesn't really matter, foam, bubble wrap, whatever you have lying around. The thing you want to keep in mind there is that be mindful of where the robot's weight is sitting on, both when it's sitting in the case normally and also if it gets tipped on its side or upside down. So in these photos here, you can see we kind of cut out some foam and it's sitting on structural parts of the robot, just so that if it's tipped on its side or whatnot, you don't want the entire weight of the robot sitting on, let's say, a sensor or some sensitive part of the robot. And then lastly, you want to put just your contact and flight info inside the case, just in case any information in the baggage tag gets damaged. Just put a copy of your contact info on the inside. And then finally here, once you got your robot all packed up in the case, there's a couple more points. So the really big first one is zip tie any latches or zippers that the case has shut. I really would suggest doing this regardless of what sort of case you have, just in case the latch gets caught on something. The last thing you want is for your box to just come open. So some people will put a padlock on it, but if you don't, be sure to just put a zip tie on each latch to hold it shut. And then you can put a note and a couple spare zip ties inside the case, under the lid or on top of the robot, just somewhere visible where the TSA agents will see it if they open it. So they'll replace that zip tie. And generally our team that I've been involved with and everyone else has had no problems. TSA will refasten those zip ties afterwards. And then again, just put another copy of your contact and your flight info on the outside of the case. And one thing you might want to do is put some sort of a unique marking, whether that's a sticker for your team, a colored stripe, whatever, something on the outside of your box. When you get to Dallas, you're going to see quite a few identical black boxes coming down the baggage belt. So something to just help it stand out will help you locate it quickly when you arrive. And then finally, just take photos from the outside as well, just in case there is some issue, something gets lost or delayed. It can be helpful to help airline staff locate your case when they have a photo. So that's it for the points I had here. I know I kind of flew through them pretty quickly, but like I said, I'll stick around afterwards for any questions, and I'm sure we can distribute these slides as well. One last slide here, it's a little bit of a side note, but just as I was putting these slides together, I found that photo. So if you have spare space left in your baggage, I would recommend, if you can, taking a couple field elements, maybe a few foam tiles or a corner of the field with you if there's any way to do it. It really can be helpful. This practice field availability at Worlds will be limited. And I'm not sure how they're doing it in Dallas, but you probably will have only a certain amount of time you can be on there at one point in time. So in the photo here, we basically took over an entire hotel room with part of the field. That you don't necessarily need a whole field, but if you can take even just a couple tiles or a couple game elements with you, I really would suggest that. It would be quite helpful. So that's it for what I got on my slides here. I'll hand it over back to Chris and everyone else.
So one other thing to point out, and thanks again, Kevin, for such a detailed explanation, very thorough. And but one of the things that we've noticed is we try to generally fly through Southwest because you get the check bags for free. I think it's 2, isn't it?
2 checked bags per person on Southwest is free.
And that
if you haven't booked your flights.
And that includes robots. So as a big program, and we travel to a lot of signature events, we actually will sometimes have 6 to 7 teams. So it's a lot to manage that many robots, that many carry-ons and luggage. And so you not only have your robot cases, but you also have your tool bags, and you also have individual team battery travel bags as well. So those things are really important to keep in mind, because if you're trying to travel with that much stuff, you really kind of have to go into it with a very planned and organized approach. So one other thing to note too, and I noticed this was on one of Kevin's slides where he was showing off his tool case. It's really important to not have like actual sharp tools in that case. We had some students one time go through TSA check, and they had several tools and scissors and other things in their backpack. So all those got confiscated and we didn't get those back. So we have found what's a really efficient way to do it is to pack all the sharp tools into a separate piece of luggage that will be checked when you get to the airport.
An additional piece of luggage that you might not be thinking about is what you're going to do with those removable casters from your robot box when they come off of the box. If you've just got a single team that you're taking and you've only got one robot box you need to pull casters off of, not such a big deal. Every kid takes one wheel and pops it into their backpack. But if you've got a whole bunch of them, those wheels are really heavy. A duffel bag, like a really good robust duffel bag, has been, especially if it's got its own wheels, has been a great thing to have. You get to the airport, you get ready to get in line to get your tickets and check everybody's bags, and you tell the kids, wheels off the boxes, pop them in the bag, and then that bag also gets checked.
It's another great bag, that one for the wheels, that we actually also put the masks and face shields if we need to take those anywhere.
It becomes our last minute everything bag, because it's the last bag at the airport, because that's the last moment they take the wheels off, so it kind of has everything. But those casters can get really heavy, and especially if you've got multiple sets of them. So if you're taking 3, 4, 5 robots, you want to think about, where am I going to put all of these heavy duty casters once I take them off of the cases?
And generally, once we've broken down the wheels off the robot boxes that we're going to check, then it becomes time for us to go through full service, which I highly recommend going through full service at the airport. It may seem like it takes longer, but it's actually more efficient. Make sure that you have one adult at the front of the line and one at the end. We have found that works really well. And we also have one adult who's collecting all of the luggage.
Little baggage
tags.
slips.
Yes.
That adult at the front of the line forewarns and pre-apologizes to the agent, say, hey, these are all the children, they're robot kids, I promise they're good kids, they're going to be real nice to you, here's their robot. And the last person through kind of help shepherd through all the baby ducks. Kathy says, how do you take your tools and extra parts sew the plane? I'm guessing on the plane.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, we
Tools,
checked them.
separate bag, checked, just like the robot. Probably not the same container as the robot because you don't want flying objects like dice in a cup floating around your robot. Extra parts, same thing, unless it's things like wheels. So round objects, soft objects, things that don't appear like weapons to TSA, easy to get on the airplane. It's things like screwdrivers, Allen keys, wrenches, pliers can be a bit dodgy, definitely scissors. Those are the kinds of things that you should check into another bag. There are some pretty great, very robust tool bags at places like Harbor Freight, Lowe's, Home Depot, Northern Tool, that are just a really simple, basic, heavy duty, zip close kind of tool bag. And that was a travel staple for years.
Another question there about brains being shipped on the robots. Absolutely leave them on. Don't unplug your wires or anything. What Kevin was saying about popping your robot up so that it's suspended in air when it's inside the case is really, really important. Otherwise, you will be replacing your axles when you get to the competition. Like he was showing with the piece of wood, that's a great option. We also use a cellular foam.
Yep, closed cell foam.
Yeah, and it's if you can find 3 to 4 inch cellular foam, then you can just use like a box knife and cut out the wheel spaces, and you can just drop the robot straight into the box, so that the robot is not, all the weight of the robot's not on the wheels, it's actually on the frame of the base.
Yeah, one thing that also works well with foam, just go to Home Depot and get some of that pink insulation foam panels. Those are really great to make cutouts out of and prop your robot up on.
And then like Kevin said in the presentation earlier, think about the sides and the top as being the bottom of your case. Like assume that they're going to turn your robot every which direction. So don't just take care of the bottom of your case when you put your robot in. You've got to keep the top and the sides just as protected, because there's a almost 100% chance your robot's probably going to be on its side and upside down, because you know, if anybody's ever watched luggage getting loaded into a plane, you know how that goes.
Another great piece, in addition to those zip ties and a note on the inside for TSA, is a note on the outside of your robot box for TSA. That thanks TSA for being TSA, because you want to start out on a nice note, and lets them know that the thing in the box is a robot that is student built for competition, and that it's on its way to competition. And to please, if they need to open the box, close it back gently.
Other questions in the chat. One says, have you transported bots in boxes with wheels still attached? And then what do you recommend to bring in terms of tools and parts?
Yes.
Yeah, if they're
Yes.
saying the wheel's still attached to the bot, then yes. Wheels still attached to the boxes, no, we take those off.
Yeah, anytime you check your robot at an airport, you do have to take the wheels off, as Kevin was saying.
Off of the case, yes.
But as soon as you get down to baggage claim, the first thing you grab is that duffel bag full of wheels, and kids just start pulling boxes off and popping the wheels back on.
Yep.
So that's kind of our flow when we do it, when we travel. But other than that, they generally stay on the rest of the time until we're back on the plane again.
Somebody asked about the controller, check or carry on. Carry on.
Yeah, we actually, you know, have kind of devised a kit where we keep our
Mhm.
controllers and our batteries together.
Which is very
That way you
similar.
have them.
Yeah, which is very similar to the
yes.
RoboSource tool.
Yeah,
briefcase.
those are kind of things that you want to have and make sure that you still have control of when you get there. So, you know, keep your controller with you, keep your batteries with you. You know, somebody asked the question, what do you recommend to bring in terms of tools and parts? Chris, you want to maybe give a little rundown?
So we found that the little part containers, and I think even Kevin probably sells these, but they're little screw cases. You can either get them at Home Depot, or Kevin has those as well. We use those in a combination of that plus larger cases for things like C channels and wheels and pneumatic parts and all of that. We try not to bring a very large, heavy object because if you go to, say, Home Depot and you buy a large toolbox, well, then you have all the weight of the toolbox plus all the stuff that you're putting in it, or parts for that matter. And when we started off doing this, we started doing it and traveling, we had a large heavy case, and we decided quickly that we did not want to do that. We actually shifted to just regular soft briefcase, or their
Soft-sided luggage, yeah.
soft-sided luggage. And eventually our stuff started getting broken, so we've now switched and sort of divided up. Our parts are in one case. It's actually a large Pelican case, and then all of our controllers.
Tools are in a separate case,
Yes.
and then each team has what amounts to, very similar to RoboSource's tools, parts case, their battery case, that has their battery, their controllers, it has chargers for their batteries or the cables.
Their power strip.
It's got a power strip. And yes, the recording will be available on,
We'll post it to
we'll
our
post it to
YouTube.
the Iron Eagles YouTube account
Yes.
for anyone who wants to
Um,
share it.
But in
And-
terms of what kind of tools and parts, if you have teams that have been doing this for a while, we often have our teams pack what they need. They're the ones that spend the time with their robots, and they know what parts they need for their robots. They know the things that they're often replacing. Since this is a student-centered program, that's one of their responsibilities, is to make sure that they have the parts and tools that they need in those cases before we leave.
So 4 really common
And
that get forgotten are controllers, engineering notebooks,
Laptop chargers.
laptop. Oh, yes, there's actually more than 4. Batteries, and safety glasses,
Safety glasses.
and license plates.
License plates.
So those are all big ones that are easy to forget when the kids are in the moment and they're trying to pack. Don't try to pack on the day you're leaving. We generally will close down our robot room and say, we're packing only. Everyone will be pre-packed and ready to go, so that we're basically just having to travel to the airport with our stuff.
And one more thing, if I can jump in real quick about things to bring. One thing I've done that's been really helpful, if there are certain parts on your robot that are cut in a specific way, or maybe mechanisms that are, a small part of the robot that you think might get damaged, pre-fabricate, if you will, pre-cut those pieces. When you're at Worlds and you don't have a lot of time between matches, it's going to be super helpful if you can just grab that part, put it on the robot, and don't need to worry about getting it to the right size and then it doesn't fit. So if there are certain parts that are difficult to make, need to be cut, might get damaged, just prepare those and have them ready in case you need them.
And
That's a great suggestion.
another
Yeah.
thing that a lot of people forget when they get to Worlds is having a template cut out, or like a piece of cardboard that shows all of the polycarbonate, or not,
Mhm.
so it would be probably
Any of the
polycarbonate.
non-shattering
Yeah.
custom plastic that you've used on your robots.
So at Worlds Day especially, you have to have that to show that you're within the 12 by 24 inch limit. So that's a really important thing to have, and it's an easy thing to forget. So, and then you're having to scramble once you get there to create it again. So make sure that your teams have that ready to go.
Hey, Chris, I'll pop in real quick. A question that I get from a lot of coaches, and might be helpful for some coaches on here, is, let's say, there's a lot of teams going to Worlds for the first time, and, they understand that packing the robot is, going to be a challenge, but a lot of coaches will reach out and ask about the batteries themselves. So they say, I don't have one of those fancy cases, or I don't have the money to buy some of these things. If a team has, let's say, 6 VRC batteries or 6 of the new IQ batteries, just a new team with little funding, how would you recommend packing those in a carry-on, like in bags, or, what kind of carry-on bag? What would you recommend for them?
Backpacks, getting started, I think the backpacks are the best option. Because with a backpack, they can put their laptop and their engineering notebook and their batteries and or chargers in there too.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty inexpensive way to do it. And we did that for several years.
Yeah, you don't have to have a special thing to get the batteries through.
No,
Yeah.
and
through
you don't even have to take them out of the bag. The
Nope.
only thing you have to take out of the bag is your laptop.
Unless you're TSA pre-check.
Yes.
Yeah, so battery, it's pretty easy to do it on a shoestring budget. If you'd feel comfortable putting your laptop in that bag, you can put a controller and batteries in that bag. So backpacks are a great choice. And it gives the kids more ownership. Like as a coach, I'm not a coach, so I carry nothing. I effectively just yell at children. But having them be the ones who are the owners of the things that they're responsible for, first of all, freaks them out at first, but that's a great thing because then they end up taking ownership and responsibility. They know that they're the ones in control of that situation. There's like no beating making sure that the kids are the ones maintaining control of their own stuff. Somebody said, can you bring a Dremel in your checked luggage? Yes, you can. You can bring an angle grinder in your checked luggage. You can bring a handsaw in your checked luggage. You can bring all kinds of stuff in your checked luggage.
If it's a power tool like a drill, you do have to remove that lithium battery though.
Yep, and put it in your backpack.
Put it in your backpack. Anything like that, you have to do that, especially on those new pneumatic pumps that all the kids all have. They're all battery powered. Most of them are lithium. You have to take those separately onto the plane. And then also back to what Zaya was saying about the what were you talking about? Just
The kids packing their own stuff.
Kids maintaining ownership of their own stuff.
yeah, there was something else I was thinking about that. Let me think again.
He'll
'Cause
come.
it slipped my mind.
It'll come back. And then in terms of transporting the power tools themselves, an inexpensive hard-sided suitcase where you've packed things with foam is great. You can pick up an inexpensive hard-sided suitcase at any discount fashion retailer. I'm thinking like Marshalls, Ross, and TJ Maxx.
Yes, and they have lots of them. Right?
And they have lots of them.
So basically, if it's a battery, it goes with you. If it's a tool, it gets checked.
It gets checked. And pack it with foam and absolutely put it on a scale before you take it to the airport, because you want to make sure that you're not getting hit with that oversized baggage fee.
So another I was gonna say is regarding the backpacks, Samsonite makes a really nice gaming backpack for kids that are gaming on their laptops. Those are great because they're generally more rigid and you can put a lot of stuff in them. Our kids actually have those and they put their controller and laptop and engineering notebook and stuff in there.
Pay attention to the sales and eBay.
Yeah.
Another option when it comes to packing the parts and tools is just getting heavy duty cardboard boxes from somewhere like Home Depot or U-Haul. And obviously, again, making sure you pack them up with foam or something. But the airlines will take cardboard boxes, just make sure they're taped up real good, but you can check those in as well, no problem.
Yep, and somebody mentioned it, asked, and we didn't talk about it out loud, but Kevin answered it in the chat, and that's how do you get field tiles onto an airplane? And Kevin had mentioned put them in trash bags or wrap them up with tape, check those puppies right on. I have seen a whole bunch of teams do that. Yeah, they're lightweight and you can absolutely get a whole bunch of field. Yes, just like that.
Sorry.
You had to look pretty fast.
Yeah, that's what we've done for field tiles. And when it comes to field perimeters, we took 3 or 4 sections, duct taped it together. This is technically larger than the size limit, but Southwest has never complained about us doing it this way.
This is not a paid advertisement for Southwest.
Yeah.
I promise it isn't, but.
It's not 2 free checked bags, man. It's just so sweet.
I noticed on there was another question about
The CAD of the drawing.
a CAD of
the plastic. Yeah.
the 12x12.
Oh man. Okay. So this is one of those places where so much of it is just going to depend on who your inspector at Worlds is. And I hate to say that, But there are some people have bigger peccadillos than others about that 12 by 24 sheet. A 2-scale printout can be challenging. And the reason why is they have no idea what the scale is and they want to be able to see, yes, this part, when I kind of hold it up to your robot, does in fact match that. So instead of doing a scale printout of the CAD of the plastic fitting within a 12 by 24, I would actually do it on like a 12 by 24 piece of paper. Parchment paper from your kitchen is great for that. It's usually about 12 inches wide. So just double check it. And you can always tape together a bunch of like 8.5 by 11 or A4 paper if you're not in the US.
If they're over, they have to be backed, right?
Yeah, that's an inspection question. We're not going over there.
Yeah. But an actual 12 by 24 is better than a 2-scale one,
Yes.
to reiterate.
You might get away with the 2-scale one, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yes.
So many teams I know with Worlds, and Ryan, you might want to comment on this, but there's not going to be any kind of shuttle transportation like they had in Louisville. And I know we're prepared for that, but I know there are other people that are kind of not prepared.
Oh, yeah, if you want to chime in. So I don't know how many on the call were in Dallas the last time we had Worlds there. That was actually my first year coaching 12 years ago. And we won and went to Worlds, and I had no clue in the world what I was doing. So, but I can tell you it's real flat, which is nice. You're not walking up hills to get to the convention center. If you're staying at a hotel, like one of the ones that were on the site, it might still be a 10, 15, 20-minute walk, but it's not a hard walk. But I think Kevin had mentioned too, like if you're, anything with wheels, or you can get a cart or something that would help, because 10 or 15 minutes carrying a light robot can become heavy. But yeah, there's none of the shuttles. So plan for a walk. Like I said, it's not a hard walk, but it is also Dallas in May, so it might be a little warm. So
the Dallas area rapid transit system also has a stop right at the Kay Bailey Center. So that is also an option. And you can absolutely bring all kinds of large objects onto the rapid transit. So that is an alternate option for getting from wherever you're staying, unless you're staying at the embassy, and that's far enough away that I can't help you. These are.
Yeah, this sort of cart here, I just want to add in, is a pretty common thing a lot of teams will get. They're pretty cheap. I mean, it's from Harbor Freight, but you can get them anywhere. And it's super convenient, especially when you have small stuff, toolboxes, random cardboard boxes, just pile them up on the cart. It'll be really helpful to consider getting one of these.
When it says it folds flat, the wheels don't actually.
Yeah, those carts fold up flat too, which is nice.
Yeah, the handle folds down, which is great.
On our most recent trip to Wisconsin, we were at a Walmart, and I purchased a little tiny hand truck, but it allowed us to stack a bunch of water bottle cases on it. But it was still small enough to fit in that wheel carry-on. So
Wheel check bag.
Yeah, the wheel check bag. Yeah. Thank you.
We don't carry that on. That's insane.
Yeah, we're not carrying wheels on.
Pounds.
Sorry. But yes, anything like that, a small hand truck that you can put in a bag and fly with it, that becomes extremely useful when you're trying to move all your stuff.
What else do people want to know?
Suggestions.
Ooh, transportation from Love Field. Oh.
I'll chime in on that. I mean, I know I'm flying in DFW, but the DART goes straight from DFW downtown, as Zaya said, and I'm pretty sure one of the stops is Love Field. So
Probably is. DFW and Love are very close.
Right. So I would check the DART site. It's the orange line. But I'm pretty sure that it makes a stop there as well. So I'm not going to say that with 100% certainty, but it sure looked like it did.
And the all-day passes on the DART, I think, are $6 per person, which is not terribly expensive. Do you leave all your stuff in the pits, or do you transport it back and forth? Some stuff you can leave in the pits. Don't leave your robot in the pits. Don't leave your laptop in the pits. Don't leave your controllers, your batteries in the pits.
Don't ever leave your robot unattended.
Don't ever leave your robot unattended, just like general rule.
It's like a small child.
99.9% of the people at Worlds are amazing and wouldn't ever do anything nefarious to a competitor. But that 0.1% is what you don't want to have your kids have to deal with. So take your robot back with you to the hotel at night. Don't leave your robot unattended in the pits. That's a great job for a bored parent, is just stick him in the corner of your pit and tell him don't touch the robot, but don't let anybody else touch the robot either. So if it's something that you wouldn't feel comfortable leaving out in a hallway overnight, don't leave it in your pit.
Yes, because it's basically unattended.
It's basically unattended. They do lock up the facility, but you still want to make sure that, you know, you don't leave early and somebody doesn't leave late and something doesn't happen.
This is another question for Ryan. We were looking at the agenda and noticed that there's so much happening all over the place at all times, and everything is, we have teams in middle school and high school. And of course, matches are going until, is it 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
So that doesn't leave a lot of time to, you know, go eat dinner afterwards or whatever. And obviously you probably don't want to eat convention center food the entire time you're at Worlds. But I don't know if you've got any tips, Ryan, on that.
Sorry, I had to go yell at my kids. They're being loud. What was the question?
What do people do when it's 7 p.m. and their last match just ended and nobody wants to eat convention center food twice in one day? Thoughts?
I would say that is something you kind of want to plan out ahead of time. Start looking at the, like, where you're staying, where you have to walk to and from, find those restaurants. You know, obviously Uber Eats and all that, you know, is popular now, but those are definitely the things you want to plan out ahead of time, because, you know, there's going to be thousands of people there and those restaurants are going to fill up. I always put my parents in charge of making dinner reservations. So, because that was something they could do. And then when we were done, we had dinner planned. So
Kind of like Disney.
It's kind of like Disney. It's yeah, give your parents that are coming with your teams to Worlds a job to do. Tell them that their job is to take notes about matches, because you just need them to do something and you need them to not be in the kids' hair. Tell them that their job is to sit in the pit and not touch the robot, but not let anybody else touch the robot. Their job is to make dinner plans. Their job is to make sure the kids stay hydrated. Give your parents jobs. It will make everyone's time so much more enjoyable. If they've got something to do, they're not getting their fingers into every little pie that you're trying to manage as a coach. And you want those kids focused on competing and having a great experience, and not on, you know, their mom licking the ice cream off their face.
One
Yes.
more.
So yeah,
One
lunch,
more-
you can't
Sorry, go ahead.
in. Sorry, Kevin.
Go ahead. Yeah, so one more note, a little bit of tangent related to taking the robot out, just thought I'd mention it. If you do find yourself in the situation where your students need to do some work on the robot in the evening, back at the hotel, I know I had the photo earlier where we converted one of our rooms one year to a field. One thing we've had luck with as well is just speaking to the hotel. Sometimes they might have a spare meeting room or even the breakfast room they'll let you use for a couple hours to work on your robot. Of course, your mileage may vary, depends on the hotel, but something to keep in mind and never hurts to ask.
And your kids are going to make friends with other teams. And if one of those team friends is in your same hotel, then that means they've got a buddy to work on stuff with. So don't be surprised when they're like, hey, can we go hang out with, you know, team 2188? They seem pretty cool and they offered to help us fix this whatever on our robot, because that's going to happen. Yes. Will the convention center let you bring in cases of water? I don't know, Ryan. Do we have to drink whatever weird waters at the convention center, or can we bring in our own?
So I'm going to plead the fifth on this one. I I mean, I know you can't bring stuff in. I don't know what the rules are on bottled water. I will inquire about that, but I honestly can't give you the correct answer because I don't actually know on that specific thing.
So, TBD.
To be determined.
Do you have any questions?
Maybe I missed this. Granola bars. Okay, so here's the deal with bringing stuff in. The convention center will probably smack your hand. If your kid sneaks a granola bar in their backpack and isn't like eating it in front of a security guard, they're probably gonna be okay, but you didn't hear it from me. But like, yeah, it's kind of like sneaking snacks into the movie theater.
Yeah, so I'll comment. I know it's on recording, but whatever. So when Worlds was last in a place that was very strict about that, which I believe was Anaheim, yeah, I mean, we flew halfway across the country. Did I have a granola bar in my pocket? You bet I did. But if you have on your pit table lined with Chick-fil-A or, you know, local pizza establishment, I do specifically remember there were teams that were getting notes that were basically going to give them back in the day what was the equivalent of a code of conduct violation, because they were, you know, I don't mess with those people on that because I have seen those situations get ugly in the past. So.
This is a great question. What about candy to give away to teams?
Not
I
anymore.
assume that's okay. I mean, my own son's team's planning on bringing candy to give away to teams. If they get in trouble for that, I think that's ridiculous. But I specifically remember the teams that were getting in trouble for it were the ones were
The same category.
bringing in catered food from a restaurant. So.
Right. Yeah. Because if they're not selling candy, then that's not not in the same category.
If they're not selling mini Snickers bars, then they
Right.
might not have a problem with it.
And of course, Oscar's got an idea.
Recommend the false bottom in your Pelican case beneath the foam. Pro tips from Oscar.
There we go.
That's speaking from experience right there.
That's a good one.
Yeah, if you've got a granola bar in your pocket and you're not flaunting it, you might be fine. But again, like, don't have a whole table full of Chick-fil-A or local pizza.
Yes,
I see.
because you may have students with issues that they need to have something
Readily
on
at
hand.
hand.
Yes. That there are individual cases where that needs to be, readily available, that you can't necessarily go stand in line to get some food.
Exactly. Carry-on chargers or checked chargers. Either one. If you've got space in your checked luggage, and it's not going to put your checked luggage overweight, pop them in your checked luggage because it's one less thing that you've got to carry on your shoulder. But if you're out of space, you can absolutely carry them on.
We carry them on.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
do carry on our chargers.
Yes.
We try to keep it all together.
Yes.
And the list, somebody had mentioned earlier, like an index card that has everything that goes into each container. So as you're packing it, you fill out the index card that says what goes back into that container. So when you have to do the reverse packing, because we all know that reverse packing is somehow more complicated, you know exactly what goes where.
Yes. And it's not always the same people packing up to leave as it was packing it to start with. So you may be in charge of packing ahead of time, and then when the kids or the parents or somebody else is helping to pack at the end, it's nice to have that there so that people know where things are supposed to go, so that you don't get, one suitcase that weighs 846 pounds and one that weighs 3 because it's nothing but foam. So it's definitely good to have those labeled of what is supposed to go.
Also, if you're using something like cardboard boxes or bubble wrap or something inside your cases, make sure those go somewhere where someone doesn't think it's trash. Put them in a hotel room somewhere where they're not getting thrown out by accident.
And Ryan says, don't forget to bring things to decorate your pits with, because you may not be able to drive to Walmart to pick up extras. Is there not a Walmart in Dallas?
I did see a Walmart on the Dallas map. You may have to take the bus to get there instead of driving, but I did see a Walmart on the Dallas map.
I'll tag on to that. I'd be very cognizant about what you're putting in your pit. They cracked down in Louisville about being outside the dimensions, which I can't recall. It's
10 by 10. Yes.
Because of fire codes. So that means do not bring a 12 by 12 field and think you're going to set it up in your pit, because that's not going to happen. So just be very cognizant of staying in your space or
Yes.
staying in your lane.
Yeah, because what she's talking about, don't even bring half a field and then think you're going to scoot your table out and then have your decorations on the front of the table because you've used up all your space in the back. They're gonna shush you back in there.
Yep. Amy said, best transportation from Dallas to Omni. I'm guessing that you mean like from one of the two airports in Dallas. And your probably most inexpensive transit between one of the airports and the Omni, yep, for Dallas and Fort Worth is going to be the DART system. It's, I think, $2.50 for a one-way anytime fare per person, $2.50. Or you can get $6 for an all-day pass. I think there may also be weekly passes if you're going to be there for both the middle school and high school portion, or for the elementary school and middle school portion for IQ.
Hey, can I chime in real quick? And I don't mean to waste time, but this might actually be important. I didn't think about it till now, but I actually called the DART folks about a month ago, and because I was trying to process through like the passes, you know, the day pass, regional pass, whatever. And the sweet lady that I talked with, she actually told me to bring cash. She said, don't pay at the kiosk with a credit card. So of course I'm like, well, what's the problem with that? She said that for some reason, the way their system is hooked up, many credit card companies will ping it as a fraudulent charge and will shut your credit card off. And she also said that if you're paying, and I'm just repeating what she said, I have not been there to test this myself, but she had said that when you're paying this supposedly with a credit card, you can buy like 5 passes at once. So like, you know, for 5 kids or 5 adults, whatever. And you have to, you know, keep doing repeated ones, which then pings the charge. She said, if you pay with cash, you can buy them all at once. So again, I cannot confirm that. That's just what the lady at DART said. So we'll find out, I guess.
Ryan also noted that for IQ, you actually do have more of an option of bringing a field to
No,
Worlds.
they have less of an option because their field is bigger now.
Well, they have more of an option than VRC.
Yes.
VRC is 12 by 12. IQ, you technically
I
get.
did talk with a couple coaches last week about that. And yeah, I mean, can that still fit in your pit? Absolutely it can. But even if the old 4x8 made your area pretty tight, you know, and I had coaches say, well, can we take the bars down between our, you know, pipe and drape? And can we, I'm like, no, don't do that. You know, and other ideas like, well, could they bring it out into the walkway? And I'm like, no, can't do that. So it's, you know, a 10 by 10 space disappears fast. So even, you know, a 6x8, that takes up a big chunk of that room already, because you have to have chairs, a table, charging station, spare parts, you know, your life on the road for a few days. Yeah, it closes up quick.
Any tips on traveling with an IQ robot?
I hear they fit in carry-on luggage.
They do fit in. carry-on
That's
luggage.
amazing.
Yeah.
And they're easy.
Yes,
to
they
repair.
do.
What is this?
Yeah, so this year's robots, especially because most were purposely made a lot or not as tall because to fit under that bar. So with the groups from my son's school, 2 of the bots can fit in the old IQ, you know, the plastic storage things they used to have, and the other one can fit in a small carry-on. So it's pretty cool.
Yes, so your robot can go right above your head and you have no worries.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. Yes. All right.
All
It's
right.
just about that time, unless anybody's got any last second burning questions that they absolutely have to know. It's about time to wrap it up.
And Kevin, will you be at Worlds?
Yep, I'll be there. So RoboSource themselves won't be there. We won't have a booth or anything, or won't be selling anything, but I'll be there. I'll be walking around, try to say hi, or feel free to also just shoot me an email. I think Chris can send out my contact info. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, or just want to say hi, send me an email anytime. I'm more than happy to help out.
Awesome. Thanks again for preparing that presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Send that out.
What?
Yeah,
You can send it out.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can
Mhm.
post.
Yeah, so on our 9364 Iron Eagles YouTube channel will have the recording from tonight, along with the slides and Kevin's contact information at RoboSource. And
And it's on the
And
slides.
it's on the slides. So there you go. It's on the slides.
And we'll drop the link to the presentation and to Kevin's slides into the Facebook groups as well.
Yes, and into the Facebook groups. And we will see you all at Worlds.
10% of you might end up with me.
Everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.